Hey, STEM 7, welcome back from spring break. It's Mr. Altopp here. I hope you have had a good, restful break and that you are continuing to stay healthy and safe. Um, we do need to jump back into our work. And so, what I'm going to do right now is a think aloud of what you were supposed to do for student guide sheet number 3, which was looking at paragraphs 22 through 26 of the of Chavez's Commonwealth Club speech. And the thing that I want to just remind you is that I may come up with a gist that is different than the gist that you come up with. I do want to encourage you to use your own words. You do not have to copy what I have come up with, but the goal here is to boil down as much as possible into one sentence the words, the meaning of the words, the essential meaning of what Chavez is saying in each paragraph. I'm also trying to think about what the central claim is from paragraph 15, where Chavez says, our union will forever exist as an empowering force among Chicanos in the Southwest. That means our power and our influence will grow and not diminish. And so when you think about like the gist of what he's saying here, I'm also trying to think about how does this relate to that central claim? Is there some way that I can also focus on the main claims of what he's saying in each paragraph? So let's look at paragraph 22. And so on the left-hand side here, I have the gist. What is he saying? What's the gist? And then on the right, how is he saying it? The rhetoric, the rhetoric that he's using from the rhetoric toolbox. And so the thing that I really notice here is how many times he talks about the increase in that very first sentence, the growth of Hispanic influence in this country. He actually starts out with the other trend that gives us hope, and that is a reference to paragraph 16, where he says that two major trends give us hope and encouragement. And then he says, first, our union has returned to a tried and tested weapon. He talks about the boycott. That's all the way back in paragraph 16. It's not until we get to paragraph 22 that he says the other trend. The other trend is the monumental growth of Hispanic influence. Remember what the central claim is, that our union will forever exist. Our power and our influence will grow and not diminish. He is talking right now directly about the growth of Hispanic power and influence. So increased population, increased social clout, increased political influence, all these repetitions. That is from the rhetoric toolbox. Repetition is important. Then he goes on to use statistics using logos. 25%. Hispanics make up more than 25%. Figure will top 30%. 1.1 million Spanish surname registered voters. All of those are statistics. He's using logos here to show that this is his argument makes sense, and he has the stats to back it up. When he ends this paragraph, he says, it's absurd to believe or suggest that we are going to go back in time as a union or as a people. It is absurd. It's illogical. It makes no logos. Does not make sense that anybody would suggest that we are going to diminish. We are not going to diminish. We are going to continue to grow. So this particular paragraph is very, very closely connected to that central claim about the power and influence growing among the Chicano people. Next paragraph. Oh, so the gist I have here is the union and Hispanic people continue to grow in social, political, and economic power. That's the gist of this paragraph. Then we go on to paragraph 23. And now he goes into this really negative, 2 paragraphs really, very, very negative statements about the growers. And if you look at all of the repetition here about only themselves to blame, the growers only have themselves to blame for all of these troubles. Only have themselves to blame. Only have themselves to blame. The growers only have themselves to blame in paragraph 22, paragraph 24, paragraph 25. Growers only have themselves to blame. And still, again, growers only have themselves to blame. So he's blaming the growers for all of these problems. For the fact that the growers are going down, it's their fault. It's nobody else's fault but the growers. And all the bad things that they have brought on here. They have reaped the harvest of decades of environmental damage. All of the things that they have done to the environment, pesticides, herbicides, fumigants, fertilizers, salt deposits, unrestrained poisoning. All of those things are the growers' fault. So I have here as the gist: the growers have caused untold damage to the land. It's their fault. Paragraph 24. Health authorities have already warned young children and pregnant mothers not to drink the water. So now we're looking at the gist of the damage. The damage that the growers have caused has real consequences for real people, and the consumers aren't going to take it anymore. So look at this. The growers have only themselves to blame for an increasing demand right here, increasing demand by consumers for higher quality food, food that isn't tainted by toxics, food that doesn't result from plant mutations or chemicals. So all of these things. The consumers are going to demand these things. Who are the consumers? The consumers are the rising class of Hispanic and Chicano people. That's part of the growth of their power and influence. So that's the gist. The damage caused by the growers has real consequences. Consumers aren't going to take it anymore. Then we go to paragraph 25. And we have growers, again, only have themselves to blame for increasing attacks on the publicly financed handouts. Okay, so this is where you might be a little bit confused, and I saw this on the mid-unit. The increasing attacks are made by the taxpayers. The taxpayers, the urban Hispanics, the taxpayers are attacking the growers for all of the benefits that they have gotten from the government. The publicly financed handouts, government welfare, subsidies for not growing crops, privileges that came into being before the Supreme Court's one person, one vote decision. And now these handouts are in jeopardy as government searches for more revenue. And in my green highlighting, urban taxpayers take a closer look at front programs, which is fake programs, and who they really benefit. So for all of these years, the growers have gotten tons and tons of benefits. And now that the Hispanics have grown in their power, they're taking a look at it and saying, no more, no more. So the gist that I have here is that urban Hispanic taxpayers are getting wise to the ways that growers have abused the system for their own benefit. How long have they been abusing the system? 100 years. So that they have the humiliation that they have brought upon succeeding waves of immigrant groups who have sweated and sacrificed for 100 years to make this industry rich. So the growers have been exploiting this system for 100 years. Taxpayers, the urban Hispanics, are not going to take it anymore. Lastly, for generations, they, the growers, have subjugated, which means enslaved, entire races of dark-skinned farm workers. These are the sins of the growers. So right here we have in our rhetoric emotionally charged language. We're saying that you have enslaved us and that it is a sin. These are the sins of the growers, not of the farm workers. Look at the repetition. We didn't poison the land. We didn't open the door to imported produce. We didn't covet billions of dollars in handouts. We didn't abuse and exploit the people. So all of these things is like, it's not our fault. It's not our fault. It's not our fault. It's your fault. And guess what? You know what you're like? You're like a punch-drunk old boxer who's about ready to lose his legs and crash to the floor. They're like a punch-drunk old boxer right here. That is a simile. You're just like a boxer who's like just swinging like that, but you know that boxer is going down. The growers are going down. Lastly, the other figurative language that's used here is the chickens are coming home to roost. What that means is like the consequences are all coming back right now. The chickens are all coming home, and the time to account for the past sins is approaching. So the gist of this is that the growers, right here, the growers are going down. Hispanics are gaining ground socially and politically. As the growers go down, Hispanic power and influence goes up. Okay, so that's the gist that I have here for these paragraphs. I want to switch over here to my teacher explanation. I'm going to post this for you all. I have put my what I have called the gist. If you have something similar, that's going to be fine. I'm not judging you on whether you're exactly like mine at all, because you're using your own thinking, your own language. But it should somewhat reflect in as boiled down as way as possible these ideas. And thinking about here the reaping of the harvest of decades of action. To reap the harvest, so that is the reaping the harvest. It's a metaphor because they're not really reaping. The growers aren't really reaping a harvest. It's something else But what they have planted are the pesticides, herbicides, fumigants, fertilizers, salt deposits. That is from paragraph 23 right here. Okay. Then what is the harm? Oh, somebody's calling. Hopefully it's not for me. I'm not going to answer it. Somebody answered it. What evidence does Chavez show to the harm caused? People have been ordered not to drink the water. Taste of the vegetables has been altered and made worse by plant mutations and chemicals, and economic harm because of foreign competition. All of that is in paragraph 24. Now, talking about paragraph 26, he's using figurative language. So he's using metaphor. He's using a simile to say they're like a punch-drunk old boxer. He's using a metaphor saying the chickens are coming home to roost. And basically, they're not going to get away with their abuses anymore. This is what I really want to focus on. What is the main claim of 22 through 26? So you look at those paragraphs, 22, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 5 paragraphs. What's the main claim of all of those things? And what I saw in many of the work that you have done, many people talked about how bad the growers are, which is true. The thing that you have to figure out, though, is that the central claim has nothing to do with the growers. The central claim has to do with the union forever existing as an empowering force, and that their power and Chicanos, that our power and influence will grow and not diminish. So you really have to look at where in the text do we see mention of the power of the union and Hispanics in general growing. It's not this. The main claim cannot be really about the growers. It has to be about Chicanos, the Hispanic people. So this is what I focus on. The growth of Hispanic political and economic power has directly challenged the abuses of the growers, and there is no way that the union or Hispanics are going to go back to the way things were before. You see this reflected in many of those paragraphs. When you talk about the taxpayers, they're looking into the economic benefits that the growers have gotten, and you especially see it here in paragraph 22. It's absurd to believe or to suggest that we are going to go back in time as a union or as a people. So my main claim really has to do with the growth of Hispanic political and economic power and how they're not going to go back. That means that they're going to increase and not diminish. So how does that connect to the central claim? It connects to the central claim by showing the ways that the union and the Hispanic people have continued to grow and how they're using their power to make things better for all Chicano people. Okay, I'm going to post this document here. You may take a look at it. I don't want you to copy it, but I want you to sort of check your answers against it. If it helps you to change your answers in some way, that's totally fine. But I'm hoping that this explanation will kind of like give you a sense or a way to like get into this text and see what Chavez is doing and how he is doing it. I hope this has helped you, and I will see you soon.